All right, everyone, get ready for another deep dive.
Hmm?
Today, we're going to be tackling the world of Japanese anime on Netflix. But we're going to be looking at it through a specific lens, and that is the availability, or really lack thereof, of Hebrew dubbing.
Okay, yeah.
And this all stems from a message we got from a viewer who brought up some really fascinating points.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah, they really kind of sparked this whole discussion. So they are, I guess I would say frustrated. Yeah, frustrated.
Frustrated, okay.
With the fact that they grew up watching anime with Hebrew dubbing, and now they're finding a lot of classic shows like Shaman King, Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura. They're just not available with those dubs anymore.
Interesting. So they can only watch them in Japanese with subtitles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what's so interesting about this.
Okay.
It's not like Netflix doesn't offer any Hebrew dubs for anime.
Right.
Like, they've got them for some of the newer remakes of these shows, but the original versions, which were actually dubbed into Hebrew like decades ago,
Wow.
those are the ones that are missing.
So almost like they're going backwards.
Yeah, it's counterintuitive, right? You'd think getting the rights to dubs that already exist would be cheaper and easier than starting from scratch.
You would think so, but I imagine the world of licensing is a bit more complicated than that, right?
Oh, I'm sure it is, but it does make you wonder what the reasoning is.
Yeah.
And, we can't rule out the possibility that maybe those older dubs just don't meet Netflix's quality standards anymore.
Oh, that's true.
I mean, let's be honest, some of those early dubs, they had their own charm, let's say.
Right. Some interesting creative choices back then.
Exactly. But I think this issue goes deeper than just licensing costs or quality concerns.
Okay, I'm listening.
This viewer really tapped into something powerful, and that's nostalgia. For a whole generation of Israeli viewers, those Hebrew dubs are tied to their childhood memories.
I get.
Like Dragon Ball, Beyblade, Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, big hits.
Huge. And for a lot of people, those voices, those specific Hebrew voices, they are the character.
It's true. It becomes so ingrained in your memory.
It makes you realize that for some viewers, choosing between subtitles or dubs, it's not just about convenience or language.
No.
It's about recapturing a feeling, a connection to a very specific time in their lives.
Absolutely. It's like a cultural touchstone.
Yeah. And this viewer didn't just complain. They actually offered a pretty interesting solution.
Oh, what's that?
They proposed a dedicated Netflix Israel platform.
Oh, like a region-specific Netflix?
Exactly. Similar to what Netflix has done in other regions.
That's interesting.
Their thinking is that it would allow Netflix to really hone in on the preferences of the Israeli market,
Makes sense.
including that demand for Hebrew dubs.
Yeah, it would give them more flexibility in terms of content and dubbing rights.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't have to worry as much about the global implications.
Right. But I wonder about the feasibility of something like that. I mean, would a Netflix Israel with potentially a smaller content library be as attractive to subscribers?
That's a good question. And would this then lead to every country demanding their own platform?
Yeah. And then you'd have this fragmented, potentially less cohesive Netflix experience overall.
A lot to consider there.
Yeah.
Now, they brought up something else that I thought was interesting. They mentioned that some anime are available with Italian dubs, but not Hebrew.
Oh.
This makes you wonder, what makes Italian a higher priority for dubbing than Hebrew?
Right. And that brings up a whole other discussion about the global landscape of dubbing and how these decisions are actually made.
It's fascinating to think about what factors are at play there.
Yeah. Is it purely audience size? Or are there historical dubbing practices in different countries that matter more?
Or maybe even like the availability of voice actors in those regions.
Yeah. Could be a lot of things. It really makes you think.
Definitely. Oh, and before we move on, there's this one other aspect of the viewer's message that I found incredibly powerful. They brought up Dana Ershpi.
Dana Ershpi.
Yeah, the Hebrew voice actress for Sakura in Cardcaptor Sakura. You know, the one who tragically disappeared in Mexico.
Oh, right. Yes, I remember hearing about that. It was so sad.
It was, and this viewer actually suggested that Netflix could honor her memory by making the Hebrew dub Cardcaptor Sakura available.
Oh, wow.
And maybe even include a dedication message at the beginning or end of the episodes.
That would be really touching. What a beautiful way to honor her legacy.
It really got to me. It's like, it's not just about wanting to watch a show in a specific language. It's about recognizing the impact these voice actors have on us.
Absolutely. And preserving a part of cultural history.
Exactly. So we covered a lot of ground already, but it feels like we're just scratching the surface here.
Yeah, we've barely dipped our toes in the water.
This viewer's message has opened up so many questions about licensing, cultural preferences, the power of nostalgia.
And even the role of streaming services in preserving those cultural memories.
It's going to be a fascinating deep dive.
I can't wait to explore it further.
Okay, so it seems like our viewer isn't alone in wanting those Hebrew dubs.
Right. Right.
But when we zoom out a bit and look at the global picture, how does Netflix approach this whole anime dubbing thing in other languages?
Well, I mean, Netflix is in like almost 200 countries, right?
Yeah, that's a lot.
Each one with its own, languages and cultures. It's a very complex situation.
Our viewer mentioned that some anime on Netflix have Italian dubs, but not Hebrew.
Oh, interesting.
And it got me thinking, what might make Italian a higher priority? Like, why Italian over Hebrew?
That's a great question.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I'm sure audience size is a big factor.
Makes sense.
Italy has a way bigger population than Israel.
Right. More potential subscribers who want those Italian dubs.
Exactly. But I don't think it's just about the numbers.
Okay, what else?
Well, you got to think about historical dubbing practices, too.
Okay.
Some countries, like Italy, they've got this long history of dubbing foreign films and shows.
Oh, yeah, going way back.
Like way back to the early days of cinema.
So it's almost like ingrained in their viewing culture.
I think so, yeah. Like people there are just used to dubbed content. They expect it.
It's interesting how those habits develop over time.
Yeah. So in a way, I guess Netflix is catering to what viewers are already accustomed to.
While also maybe trying to reach new audiences who prefer dub.
Right. Exactly.
Now, I'm curious about the more technical side of things. Are there any limitations on Netflix's end that might affect which languages get those dubs?
Oh, for sure. One big one is finding good voice actors.
Oh, yeah, of course.
I mean, dubbing isn't easy.
Yeah.
You need skilled professionals who can, capture the original performance, but also make it sound natural in the new language.
Right. It's an art.
It really is. So if there's a shortage of those talented voice actors in a specific language,
It's going to be tough to make a good dub.
yeah, no matter how much they want to do it.
So maybe the pool of Hebrew voice actors is smaller compared to, like, Italian.
Possibly. I mean, Italy has a much bigger film and TV industry.
Yeah, that makes sense. More opportunities to develop those skills.
Right. So Netflix has a lot to consider. Audience size, cultural preferences, all these technical aspects.
It's a complicated puzzle.
It really is. And this kind of brings us back to the Netflix Israel idea.
Oh, right.
Well, could that help address some of these issues?
I mean, it seems logical on the surface, but I want to hear your expert take on this.
Well, a dedicated platform would let Netflix tailor its content specifically for Israelis, right?
So they could maybe get those classic Hebrew dubs back?
Potentially, yeah. And they could invest in dubbing newer anime that's popular there.
Basically giving the audience what they want without worrying about global appeal.
Exactly. Recognizing that different markets have different tastes.
But are there any downsides to this whole dedicated platform thing?
I mean, there's always downsides.
Yeah, of course.
Creating a separate platform for, a smaller market like Israel, that takes a lot of resources. Building a content library, managing all the licenses, marketing it.
That's a big investment for a potentially smaller return.
Right. And then there's the issue of fragment.
Oh, you mean like every country wanting its own Netflix?
Exactly. Where does it end? And would that ruin the whole Netflix experience, having these isolated content bubbles?
Yeah, I could see that being a problem. Part of the appeal is having that huge global catalog.
It's a trade-off. Customization versus choice.
Yeah, tough.
But even with all these platform discussions, what really struck me was our viewer's point about Dana Ershpi.
Right. It was such a powerful part of their message.
It brings that human element into it, These decisions, they affect real people.
It's not just business, it's about memories and emotions and legacy.
And that's something streaming services should consider. They have a lot of power to shape our cultural landscape.
Well said. Okay, so we've covered global dubbing, we've talked about platforms, and we've seen how these decisions have a real emotional weight.
A lot to unpack.
Definitely. But our viewer's message wasn't just about analyzing things, it was a call to action.
Oh, right.
What can people actually do to make a change?
Right.
So we've talked about the viewer's frustration, all those complex decisions that Netflix has to make, and kind of the global perspective on dubbing.
Right.
But now let's get down to it. What can our viewer actually do? What can people who feel the same way do to maybe try to change things?
Yeah, it's easy to feel kind of powerless when you're up against a giant company like Netflix.
Right.
But our viewer actually laid out some pretty good ideas.
Okay, like what?
Well, first off, classic internet activism. Share the video, get people talking about it.
Yeah, spread the word.
Exactly, because in this day and age, with social media and everything, raising awareness is huge.
Strength in numbers.
Right. The more people talk about this issue, the more pressure there is on Netflix to do something about it.
Okay, so get the word out. What else?
Well, they also suggest translating the video, adding subtitles in different languages.
Oh,
yeah, because it makes it accessible to a wider audience.
Makes it a global conversation.
Exactly. It shows that this isn't just an issue for Israelis. It affects anime fans all over the world.
Makes sense. But let's be real, getting Netflix to actually change its policies, that's a tough battle.
It is.
So what are some things that that people who are passionate about this can do that are maybe a little more achievable?
Well, there's always fan subs.
Oh, fan subs, right?
Yeah, I mean, they've been a part of anime culture forever.
Yeah, I remember back in the day.
They allow fans to translate and subtitle shows that might not be officially available in their language.
It's a little bit of a gray area, legally speaking.
True, but there's no denying they've made anime accessible to a lot of people.
And it's gotten even easier these days with all the online tools and collaborations.
It's pretty amazing, actually. It shows how dedicated and passionate anime fans are.
They see a problem and they find a way to fix it.
It's really cool. Like, fans are shaping the media they consume, not just passively watching it.
This whole conversation has been fascinating.
It really has.
We started with this one viewer's frustration and ended up exploring the whole global world of anime dubbing.
Licensing, cultural preferences, the power of fans.
It's been a journey.
It has. What do you think is the main thing people should take away from that?
I'd say the biggest takeaway is that viewers have a voice,
Mm-hmm.
and that if you're passionate about something,
Yeah,
you can find ways to make a difference, even if it's just starting a conversation.
absolutely.
So to all our listeners out there, don't be afraid to speak up, to share your thoughts, and to connect with others who feel the same way.
Because you never know, it might just lead to some real change.
And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Until next time.